Hi everyone. Hi Swati. Thanks so much for the introduction. Rishad, you can share the presentation, please. Thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Deeksha Gujral. I manage Pro Bono's programmatic work in India. And prior to this, I practiced in courts across Delhi. So I've also seen Pro Bono work take place in that capacity as well. I'm going to be speaking to you all a little bit about the Pro Bono ecosystems in India and our main takeaways after having worked in this space for over a decade. Next slide. So, Pro Bono is an NGO working on access to justice. Our mission is to enable people to access their rights in pursuit of a just society. We do this by representing individuals and communities in need, by strengthening civil society through legal support, and through our advocacy efforts. Next slide. So, we have two main models that are the backbone of our work. The first is the model that we use for our litigation. We have panels of lawyers competitively selected in Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, Kolkata, Jaipur, and Jodhpur. Cases are referred to us by our partner organizations, or in some cases, our own social workers, they refer them to us after getting them for psychosocial support from the Child Welfare Committee in Delhi. The Pro Bono program officer identifies a panel lawyer who's appropriate for the matter, and the panel lawyer argues the case in court, while our program officer is responsible for liaising with the client and the social worker, with supporting with research and drafting, and monitoring the case to ensure that nothing falls through the cracks. This model ensures that the client is provided wraparound support by a team of three: the social worker, the panel lawyer, and Pro Bono's program officer. It also ensures that the panel lawyer's role doesn't extend to providing psychosocial support, because this is an additional burden that often leaves lawyers unable or disinclined to take on more than one or two pro bono cases. The second is our model for supporting civil society organizations or NGOs in the country. This is what we call our transactional work. Pro Bono provides free legal advice to NGOs through our community of accomplished pro bono lawyers. This could include free legal advice in relation to IP issues, regulatory compliances, drafting contracts and internal policies, advice on FCRA, or any other issue that might come up. Lawyers who are interested in providing support to NGOs sign up on our website, in which process we collect information about their areas of practice and their interests. Once we receive a request from an NGO, we analyze the legal requirements, we identify a suitable legal professional from our network, and we assign the project to them. Pro Bono monitors each case to ensure that the needs of the NGO are comprehensively met. So in the course of this work, we've had a number of different learnings. Firstly, the role of an Pro Bono program officer or an equivalent with a similar role is essential. This ensures that each client is receiving adequate representation, that our panel lawyers are not overwhelmed in the process of support that goes beyond their remit. For instance, if we have a situation where a panel lawyer is getting a call, in the evening saying that my child is no longer able to go to school, or my child we're facing financial difficulties, that's not something the lawyer is equipped to provide support on. That's not the core area of their work. They should be able to focus their work on the legal aspects, and that sort of advice should be left to CSOs or somebody who's more equipped to provide it. We feel that successful pro bono representation therefore requires a thorough monitoring system. Secondly, our model would not work without the support of partner organizations. They provide psychosocial support to individual clients. They help us communicate with the communities we're representing and get the necessary information we need from the ground. And they identify when interventions are necessary. Usually, it's our partner NGOs who identify the need for a lawyer and reach out to us, as they have the ability to leverage available resources in which vulnerable clients may not have. Third, we realized that we need a flexible model that can be tailored as required. Some jurisdictions and subject areas are more difficult than others. For instance, we've had to go for a reduced fee model in Rajasthan because the bar was unwilling to work on a completely pro bono basis. We've struggled to provide representation in domestic violence and family law work because we struggle to find lawyers who are interested in taking on that work. So currently, we're only offering advisory support in those subject areas. It's unlikely that there is a model that can apply to all forms of legal support throughout the country. So it's important to have that level of flexibility in any model that's created. And finally, pro bono is only possible when lawyers are in a position that they can financially commit to it. A common piece of feedback we receive from lawyers we speak to is that they would like to focus on pro bono work, but they need to have their financial needs met first. This is probably why it's easiest to get quality pro bono representation in metro cities like Delhi, and is something that needs to be factored into any system for pro bono representation. There are also three main resources that I feel like Pro Bono has tapped into, which have not been adequately utilized in the provision of pro bono legal services in the country. The first, of course, is law students. We take on law interns and we're working with clinics in a number of law schools across the country. Only a few law schools, however, have such opportunities available to their students, and student interns need some amount of supervision because they're working on these matters very often for the first time. So, systems to involve them have to be carefully developed. Secondly, in house lawyers. These lawyers, in our experience, are often looking for ways to work pro bono work that they find rewarding, um, and that they feel is emotionally something that they want to do. But there are very few avenues available for them to do so. Third, law firms. There are a lot of law firms that can do work if we're able to leverage their skills in the right way. For instance, we work with a team from Khaitan to plan training sessions for parents of children with autism on estate planning, in order for them to understand how they can provide for their children in the event of uh, their death. This has been done in collaboration with the CSO called Forum for Autism. Similarly, we've had law firms advise NGOs who want to form a Section 8 company or assist in a matter before a charity commission, or if an NGO needs tax advice or FCRA advice. These are things that law firms are particularly equipped to provide support on. Of course, we also work with litigating lawyers, but there's been a very large amount of pro bono work that they're already engaging in, either through avenues like the state legal services authorities or in their independent capacity. That said, of course, there's definitely scope for further involvement. Let me very quickly just share some suggestions on how we can encourage and improve the pro bono culture in India based on our own experience and our thoughts. Firstly, with regard to students, clinics need to be encouraged, and participation in this work can be built into the curriculum. This allows for a lot of pro bono work, which can be completed through student support. For instance, Project 39A does some incredible work. Additionally, this helps create an informed and sensitized generation of lawyers. A number of the lawyers on our team at iPro Bono were inspired by the pro bono work they did in college, and this is what caused them to want to get into a career focusing on access to justice issues. Secondly, when it comes to lawyers, I don't think it's possible to make it mandatory for lawyers to do pro bono work. We spend hours chasing lawyers who've lost interest in a matter, and that's detrimental to everybody involved, including the client. Pro bono work can play a role in deciding a senior counsel, appointment as a judge, or even appointment of incentives like this can go a very long way in changing the pro bono culture of the bar. Similarly, incentives can be implemented for law firms to get engaged in doing more pro bono work. Thirdly, promoting CSOs. A lot of the work is best done through more targeted efforts by organizations on the ground. As I mentioned earlier, NGOs are an integral part of our model, and their involvement really allows our work to succeed. So it's important that any system that is implemented accounts for NGOs and encourages them to be involved in the process. And finally, capacity building. It is necessary to build capacities and resources on a subject matter basis. For instance, there are only a handful of lawyers in India specializing in asylum law, and they get called whenever a case comes up anywhere else in the country. If there were a database for such lawyers, it would be easier for them to connect with the relevant resources in other states, and it will also be possible for them to share learnings with each other. I'm on a group on WhatsApp for child rights lawyers, and it has experts from across the country. And I've actually learned so much from all of them that creating groups of lawyers targeting a specific issue is a really important next step. And of course, beyond lawyers, it's also important to build capacity from the perspective of beneficiaries. So, hypothetically, if a woman who's been sexually harassed at work could access, say, an app that explains to her in her vernacular language her rights, the resources that might be able to help her, the contact numbers for lawyers and NGOs, that would be a game changer for her. Similarly, we've been working on an informational video in Hindi on domestic violence laws in order to help women understand their rights. So, building capacities of lawyers, I feel, needs to accompany empowering beneficiaries to access these resources. Just like, and so finally, making pro bono aspirational. At the moment, pro bono work is done by lawyers who have an altruistic desire to do rewarding work. And we're privileged to be working with very many such lawyers. But if we want to create an ecosystem that promotes this work, we need to make it easy for interested lawyers to do work that they're skilled to do. The challenge, I feel, is in matching demand and supply. in creating systems that monitor the support that's being provided and ensuring that support is sustainable. While Pro Bono has been working on this area for years, we're excited to see if a larger scale model promoting the same principles is possible. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this conversation develops. Thank you all so much for your time.